In the 1800s, in the cold forests of coastal Maine, a cat began appearing on farms that no one could quite explain. 20 pounds, tufted ears like a lynx, a tail like a fox brush, snowshoe paws with extra toes. No record of it being imported. No similar breed in Europe. It was as if the forest had just produced its own animal. Today, the Maine Coon is the second most popular cat breed in America and the largest natural occurring domestic cat in the world. The current record holder, a Maine Coon named Barival from Italy, measured nearly 4 feet long from nose to tail. But how this animal came to exist is still actively debated. We are going to walk through the 3 leading theories, the legends, the genetics, and the answer that DNA finally gave us in the last decade. Theory 1, the romantic one. In 1793, as the French Revolution closed in, Marie Antoinette is said to have planned an escape to America. She loaded a ship in advance with her most prized possessions, including 6 of her beloved, long-haired Turkish Angora cats. The cats made it onto the ship. Marie Antoinette did not. The ship sailed without her, eventually landing in Wiscasset, Maine. The cats are said to have disembarked, mated with local short-haired farm cats, and produced a long-haired, cold-adapted hybrid that thrived in the New England winter. That hybrid, the legend says, became the Maine Coon. It is a beautiful story. Cat genetics says it is almost certainly wrong. The DNA of modern Maine Coons does not show a meaningful Turkish Angora signature. They're long-haired gene clusters with Norwegian and Russian breeds, not Mediterranean ones. But the legend persists, partly because Wiscasset locals have repeated it for so many generations that it has the weight of family memory. Theory 2, the Viking theory. And this is the one the genetics actually points to. Roughly 1,000 years ago, Norse sailors reached the coast of North America. We know this. The settlement at Lancesauk Meadows in Newfoundland was excavated in the 1,960 seconds. Vikings had cats on their longships. They were essential cargo. They killed rats that ate the grain stores. The Vikings carried a breed we now call the Norwegian forest cat. Compare a Norwegian forest cat to a Maine Coon side by side. And the resemblance is so close that breeders sometimes struggle to tell which is which from a photograph. Both have the lynx tip ears, the long shaggy coat, the snow-tolerant paws, the brush tail. In 2013, genetic analysis published in PLOS ONE showed that the Maine Coon shares an unusually high proportion of its genome with Norwegian and Russian breeds. The Viking pathway is the strongest single explanation we have. So the most likely story is this. Norse cats arrived on the North American coast 1,000 years ago. Some descendants probably persisted in coastal forests. Later, English and Irish settlers in the 1,600 seconds and 1,700 seconds brought additional ship's cats. The two populations mixed. The cold Maine winter selected for size, dense fur, and snowshoe paws. What emerged, naturally, was the Maine Coon. There is a third theory. Very old, very stubborn, and biologically impossible. When white settlers first encountered the Maine Coon in the early 1800s, they noticed the long brush tail and the dark ring markings on some individuals. They concluded sincerely that the cat must be a hybrid of a domestic cat and a raccoon, hence the name. Coon, as in raccoon. This is impossible. Cats and raccoons are not in the same biological family. They cannot interbreed any more than a horse can interbreed with a beaver. But the tail resemblance is so visually striking that the folk theory survived into the 20th century. A more reasonable variant says the Maine Coon is a hybrid of a domestic cat and a North American bobcat. This one is at least biologically plausible, because both are in the family Felidae, but DNA evidence does not support meaningful bobcat ancestry in the breed. However, the bobcat resemblance is probably why the Maine Coon has lynx tufted ears, large paws, and a stocky build. It is what biologists call convergent adaptation. Cold climate forest cats end up looking alike, no matter their actual lineage. Here is one of the strangest Maine Coon facts. Historically, somewhere between 40 and 70% of Maine Coons had extra toes. Polydactyly, 6 or even 7 toes on the front paws. Modern breed standards have selected away from this trait, but in the original New England farm population, it was nearly universal. Why? So common. Genetics suggests a single founder effect. A small number of early polydactyl cats in coastal Maine produced a large share of the local population. The extra toes were not just a quirk. On a working farm in deep snow, they functioned like built-in snowshoes. The polydactyl Maine Coon could walk on top of crusted snow that a normal cat would sink through. Farmers selected for the trait because the bigger pod cats were the better mousers in winter. Hemingway's famous Key West cats are descendants of a polydactyl ship's cat the writer received from a Maine sea captain. Some 40 to 50 polydactyl cats still live at the Hemingway house today. Their toes trace back to a Maine Coon line that crossed the country. On size, a male Maine Coon typically weighs 13 to 18 pounds at adulthood, but these cats keep growing for 4 to 5 years, far longer than other domestic breeds, which mostly finish growing at once. That extended adolescence is part of why some individuals end up at 20, 25, even 30 pounds of muscle and fur. The record holder for length was a Maine Coon named Stewie, who measured 48.5 inches nose to tail. That is over 4 feet of cat. Barival, an Italian Maine Coon, holds the current record at over 3 feet 10 inches. Both animals were physically larger than many adult bobcats, despite the size. The Maine Coon is genuinely one of the gentlest breeds on record. They are often called gentle giants by breeders. The combination is unusual. Most large domestic animals carry some defensiveness. Maine Coons, somehow, do not. They tolerate dogs, children, leashes, other cats, and crowded households with a level of patience that seems out of proportion to their bulk. So, here is what we actually know. The Maine Coon almost certainly descends from Norse ships' cats that reached the North American coast 1,000 years ago, mixed with later English and Irish ships' cats, and was then shaped by 2 centuries of harsh New England winters into the largest, gentlest, most cold-adapted domestic cat that exists. Not a raccoon hybrid, not a Marie Antoinette refugee, just 1,000 years of Atlantic crossings, hard winters, and barn cats raising other barn cats on coastal farms. The animal in your living room, if it is a Maine Coon, is the product of a continuous line of ships and barns and winters, tracing back to longships that landed before the word America existed. That is what a Maine Coon actually is. If you have a Maine Coon, or if you just learned something, hit subscribe. There are more breeds with stories like this one.